Has anyone ever jumped off of a diving board at a pool? Not a high one, but one that as you climb up the ladder and start to walk out onto the board, you start to realize this might be a thing. The board is narrow and it flexes as you walk out onto it. You realize that the surface of the pool is a lot higher. You're a high above it more than you thought you'd be. You look down into the clear water to the bottom, and you know it's a lot deeper than it looks. You start to feel fear, but also a tingling of excitement. The fear tells you maybe today is not the day to attempt this. But you look around and you realize that there's people at the pool and they're starting to look at you expectantly. Pride kicks in and you think, nah, it'll be a lot worse if I have to turn around and schlep down the ladder with my tail between my legs. Your mind is awash with conflicting emotions and thoughts, but you simply must find the clear line of focus to just dive. I'm going to talk to you today about that magical moment that happens right before you do something that changes everything. That moment is akin to walking on a precipice, on the edge of decision, preparation, and execution. I want to stretch that moment out so you can understand how we need to draw its power to us so that we can enhance not only our lives, but the environment around us. So why is transformation so important in our lives? It would be so simple if our consciousness could learn and develop at the same time that our bodies are growing. We grow wiser with grace and with ease, right? Not quite. Our experiences, our external environment, and our internal nature conspire to create disruptions to our forward momentum. Sort of like taking cars and throwing them up in the air to fall where they may, with no consideration to where we might want them to fall. These upheavals might be having a baby, or dealing with a breakup, quitting your job, or maybe moving across the country. We might view them initially as incredible strokes of luck or setbacks. But the one thing that they all have in common is that they force us to look at the lives that we're living in a different way. These seminal moments allow us to accelerate through several developmental steps, not skipping, but quickly processing revelations that we've been reluctant to address, usually because of a fear of change. So what's occurring in our heads when we encounter this change? We activate the limbic system of our brains. It's one of the oldest portions and was responsible for controlling primitive life, such as looking for food or self-preservation. In modern times, it's responsible for controlling our emotions and our motivations. You've heard of the fight or flight reflex, correct? The limbic system controls that. It's the first part of our brain to react to outside stimuli that engages us on an emotional level. It can identify threats, it can tell us how to react, and then it lets us know if our reaction was appropriate or not. A good example is receiving and reading an obnoxious email from a colleague, immediately typing up a snarky reply, and then sitting back and thinking, do we really want to hit the send button? Many experts contend that the limbic system also reinforces our emotional intelligence. That's our ability to identify, assess, and control the emotional states of not just ourselves, but of others. Many leaders use these qualities to inspire and motivate. A high EI quotient allows us to make informed decisions about some of the goals we want to reach, and also bypasses fear and distractions that might cloud our vision. A life-changing event has the power to kick our limbic system into a hyperdrive state and allow us to quickly and efficiently get to our next stage of developmental awareness. In 2005, I was an architect working at a large firm. I enjoyed the high quality and caliber of projects and also the learning process necessary to solve complex design decisions. But I've always been an idea person, someone who at the spur of the moment will come up with some solution to some of life's problems, usually to make it easier or more enjoyable. But my ideas came and went because with a demanding profession, it was very hard to act on them. But New Year's Eve, 2004, I had the distinct feeling that change was in the air for me, and that my carefully curated and organized cards were going to go up in the air, and I better be on notice. Sure enough, by the end of that new year, I had left my job of 10 years. I had started my own small architecture practice, and I also was on the verge of starting another company. So what happened? What was my why? I had to sell my parents' house. Several years earlier, my mom had passed away, and as the only child, I was responsible for its disposition. Anyone who has had to sell the house that they've lived in understands the wrenching experience it could be. What to keep, what to sell, what to discard, all while remembering a life that now only exists in your memories. When the house did sell, it was like a weight had come off of my shoulders. Not just the house itself, but the effort of holding on so tight to the past and letting tradition guide my path. So in the fight or flight reflex, I chose flight. I just let go. I decided that I wanted to be the person who made the professional decisions make the decisions in my professional life. I would decide whether or not and what I would create, whether it would be buildings, objects, or ideas. I vowed that those crazy ideas would finally see the light of day. My first idea was actually more of a question. What if Clevelanders learned about the exciting, learned the stories behind some of the beloved landmarks? Would they take more pride in the city? So I started documenting the history, the culture, and the architecture of Cleveland under the name CityProwl. I created audiotours. As I refined the idea, I realized that the audiotours really resonated with my personal mission of promoting civic engagement. When you align your goals with your mission, it can really help you prepare for the lessons that profound change brings to your lives. Simon Sinek, in his book Start With Why, outlines why some leaders are more compelling than others. He created the golden circle concept to illustrate this. It's not what you do or how you do it that's compelling. It's why you do it. The why of CityProwl was to create an emotional attachment between people and the cities that they live in. If you have a clearly articulated why, it can act as a North Star as you traverse the precipice of change. So let's talk about our city for a moment. It's not just people that can stand on the precipice. How many of you haven't felt in the last couple of years that Cleveland is on the verge of a positive breakthrough? Well, there have been 3 recognizable periods that have propelled the city towards greatness in the last 200 or so years. The first one came at the completion of the Ohio Canalway system around 1827. That brought an influx of people and also commerce to Cleveland, lifting it from a rural village to a bustling 19th century metropolis. The next event came at the dawn of the Second Industrial Revolution around 1850. Our prime location on Lake Erie, which attracted the canalways, also attracted the railroads. Cleveland became the 15th largest city in the United States. Entrepreneurs came seeking fortune by Sturdy businesses that created alternate and creative methods of manufacturing. Those same innovators became part of Cleveland's elite class of millionaires living the life on Euclid Avenue. This well-traveled and worldly group brought back home the latest discourse on literature and civics, art and architecture, which elevated Cleveland's reputation as a sophisticated and cultured city. Our final leap came at the turn of the 20th century, when those same millionaires started to question what their legacy was going to be, not only to Cleveland, but to the world. You might have noticed that we've been recently celebrating the centennials of many of these organizations that were founded because of those legacies, including where we're sitting right today, Cleveland Museum of Art. CMA's mission, which is for the benefit of all people forever, can really speak to all of these institutions as they were founded for the betterment of the people of Cleveland. Daniel Burnham's proclamation, "Make no little plans, for they have no magic to stir men's blood," was taken to heart by our reform-minded mayor and former entrepreneur, Tom L. Johnson. He was really the voice of this time when Cleveland was reinventing itself as a 20th century city. It was importing ideas and transforming them, but also exporting our innovations to the world at a rate as fast as we were expanding. But as the century progressed, our focus turned inward and our plans became smaller. Cleveland's population plateaued, stagnated, and then declined. But now, Cleveland is poised to chart a different path. Amid the population losses, we're starting to see growth in our downtowns and in our core neighborhoods. This has been fueled by new inhabitants who are passionate about the growing livability of the city. But what is Cleveland's why? What is the story that we want to share? It's time that we stop letting others define us by details and start conveying our own individuality. Marcus Samuelsson is a chef in New York City, and he recently wrote an article for the New York Times about his adopted neighborhood of Harlem. Samuelsson is originally from Sweden, and he was instantly struck by Harlem's hospitality, the flair, the style, and the pride of the people who were so willing to share the magic of their neighborhood with him. Now that Harlem is starting to import and see more people moving in and frankly, getting more money, he's very confident that Harlem's gracious and welcoming ethos will help knit together these diverse populations to continue to be a neighborhood that takes care of its own. Cleveland has to answer that fundamental question. What is its ethos in order to fuel and sustain the renaissance that we've been experiencing? So we've talked about the importance of a personal mission and knowing its why as we proceed along the precipice. But how do we gracefully jump off of it and accurately navigate the chaos of transformation? There are 4 items that we need to keep close to us in order to keep that mission clear. The first one is to consider the counterintuitive move. Sometimes the way forward is hidden and we have to discover its path. We've got to remain open and agile to all the different options that are presented to us, even the ones that might seem in conflict with where we might think we're going to end up. Number 2, embrace failure. In the United States, 3 out of 4 VC-backed startups fail. Those entrepreneurs, however, don't give up. They take the lessons that they learned and apply it to the next project. Silicon Valley is so special because it welcomes and codifies failure as an interim step to becoming successful. Number 3, have the courage to divest. Sometimes we have to abandon the very things that made us successful in order to move forward. We have to be ruthless in assessing what points us in the right direction and what's merely baggage. Finally, number 4, curate your tribe. We all know the importance of a strong support network, but does it challenge you? We have to keep our ideas and our minds sharp by considering different and divergent points of view. Sometimes the best collaborations occur between people from different backgrounds who are committed to a common goal. Let's talk about collaboration for a moment. Nowhere is its presence more important and critical than in our cities. In the present discourse about the wonders of urban life, we still view a thriving, vibrant city in the same way we did 100 years ago. Very dense, increasingly vertical, and with populations of well over 1 million people. But what about our mid-sized cities? They make up a very small portion of the discussion and analysis of urban policy. Some of the leading books on the subject actually view mid-sized cities with a little bit of they really do not like mid-sized cities. They look at us with a little bit of sadness because of our failure to blossom into large metropolises. They wish us well, but clearly they're not betting on us. But it's time to realize that not all cities are created equal, and that vitality should not be based on hitting that million-person mark. St. Louis should not assume that the growth policies of a Chicago are applicable to its unique circumstances. Mid-sized cities really need to start looking at their position and influence in the 21st century America. As Clevelanders, we're all very aware of the charms of being small enough to be friendly and close-knit, but large enough to cultivate a sophisticated and culturally diverse community. But nowhere does there exist any quantifiable data about what makes a mid-sized city tick. Of the 264 cities in the United States that have populations above 100,000, only 33 of them have populations above 500,000. That leaves 231 mid-sized cities who are currently working to solve their own unique urban challenges. Suppose we decided to collaborate with each other. Our particular size makes us very unique and responsive laboratories to solve urban challenges. We could share data and information strategies. We could pool our resources to fund studies, to study common goals. We can also build legislative clout so that we can get some of these studies funded. These are far, far better outcomes than squabbling over rankings on this week's best or worst cities list. It's not just Cleveland that's on the edge of change. It's the very idea of how mid-sized cities can change the framework of urban life. The power of the precipice is lost without the jump or the fall. If you fall without a plan, you're overwhelmed, quickly paralyzed by fear. You try to course correct in midair, and your landing is awkward and painful. But if you anticipate a jump, or even a push that you hadn't taken into consideration, with a guidance plan and a mission, you're free to gracefully and joyfully execute, learn, transform, delight, teach, fight, lead, inspire, astound, love. Thank you.